Hello YouTube, welcome to the episode 2 of our C++ programming tutorial. We're going to be kind of building on what we went over last video. We're going to introduce inputs as well as kind of reinforce outputs. Today we're going to be making a very simple, I guess you can call it a calculator. It's only going to do one type of it's only going to add 2 numbers, but we want to keep it simple, we want to keep it fun. And then after this video, you're going to be able to, you'll have the knowledge to kind of build upon it, build a more complicated calculator, hopefully. And feel free in the comments to let me know if I went over anything too fast or I didn't explain a certain topic well enough. I'm new to making tutorials. So, any criticism helps, and I don't mind, criticism at all. So, let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend we're hired by a client to make a calculator. And this calculator is only going to add 2 numbers, and that's all the boss wants, right? So just go with it. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to pretend this program is going to be used by someone who has never used a computer. And this is kind of a good mindset to have when writing programs, is you really want to make it idiot proof. You want to prompt the user, you want to give instructions, you want it to be very easy to use. So keep that in mind for this tutorial and all other tutorials. Think of it as writing a program for your grandma or your grandpa or some elderly person who probably doesn't have a lot of experience with computers. Getting in this mindset early on in the programming learning process is definitely recommended. So right now the program is empty. If you're starting out, if you're just loading our last program, just go ahead and delete everything and have it look like my screen. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we want to prompt the user to enter a number. So if you remember, we can just do console out because we're going to output something. And we'll say, please enter a number. Just like that. We can kind of make it look like that. And this space, we'll put a space just like I did down here, and you can see the difference. So if I didn't put anything and I just did like how we did last video when I outputted the name, it would look like that, and that can be confusing and it doesn't look that nice. So we're gonna make it, we can put a little space right there to make it, to kind of clean it up a little bit. Okay, so the next thing we're going to introduce is something new. You can see we print something on our screen. We prompted the user to perform a task. But right now, if we go ahead and build the program and run it, the program is just going to go through every line and it's just going to hit enter number, but we can't enter anything because the program, it's not, it doesn't know that you're trying to get a number from someone. So what we need to do is we need to use console input. And inputs and outputs are pretty much the fundamentals of any programming language. So how we do an input is we're going to do console input, so C, N, and our arrows are actually going to be facing the other way. Just like that. But if you remember, we need, before we get an input from a user, we need a place to store that input. That is, just kind of engrave that into your mind. Before you get anything, you need a place to store it. The computer isn't going to know what to do with it. So let's go ahead and let's store it in a variable. And if you remember, we're working with numbers, so we're going to do int, and we'll just call it number 1. Keep it simple. So here's our box that we built, and we want to store the number that they're going to input in the box. Just like that. And you can see it highlights it. So let's go ahead and walk through it really quick. We're prompting the user to enter a number. This is going to allow the user to enter a number. And when they enter that number, it's going to be stored here. And there we go. So if we want to check if that number is correct, we can actually go ahead and let's output number 1 after we get the input. So let's just make sure everything's working. So I'm going to enter 7, and it should output 7. There we go. So we know it's working. It's getting the correct information from the user. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete this output. And we are going to prompt the user for another number. So just like we did up top, please enter another number. Like that. And before we get that second number, we can't store the number in here, because all it's going to do, it's going to overwrite the original number, and it's not going to be able to perform math because it's only going to have one number to work with. So we have to create another integer. Just like last video. So we should be pretty familiar with this. And we're going to do the same as we did up top. Cn. And number 2. And there we go. We can output number 2 to check if it's working, but I'm pretty confident it will work. So we're going to perform the math with these two numbers, and just like last video, we need to store the answer. We need to store the sum. And we're going to create the sum just like that. And then we can do sum equals number 1 plus number 2. And then we can go ahead and output the answer. So CL, oops. Actually, I think they'll get the point. So we can just output sum. So the idea is, last video we kind of hard coded it. The program already had stored numbers that it added. This program is going to allow the user to enter their own numbers, and it's pretty much a very dumbed down version of a calculator. So let's go ahead and run it and see how it works. So you can hit 5, 7, and 12. Oh, if you notice, I missed to put this. So that should work. Do it again. And there you go. So you can do big numbers. And there's your little program. So I know it seems really easy, and that really is the point of these videos, is to kind of give you a very simple foundation, because I want you to go out and make your own program, kind of using what I just taught you. You can do subtraction, you can do multiplication, you can even do division. You can change it any way you want, get creative with it. That is the best way to learn, is making mistakes. And I think we're probably going to stop here. I'm going to keep this one short, and hopefully you learned a lot, and you learned kind of the basic inputs and outputs of C++. As always, thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like my videos. Also, if you are into electronics, I have another series building electrical circuits with fritzing. It's free, the program's free, everything is free about it. And until next time, guys.